My field is forensic anthropology. This is basically the application of our knowledge and techniques of anthropology to medical legal issues that are presented to us. Like other areas of forensic science, forensic anthropologists need to be broadly trained in the science of anthropology, but then they have to be ready for the problems that are brought to us, and that's really what drives our field. The underlying science, but also the nature of the medical legal problems that we have to apply it to, and the evidence that is available to use in that investigation. We think of forensic anthropology as a single subfield of forensic science, and to some extent it is, but mostly it's a collection of techniques that are applied to a very diverse array of problems. These problems can start with recovery. Anthropologists are frequently called upon to investigate sites and attempt to discover and recover human remains if they're suspected of being there. This endeavor involves some high technology that's available now, but mostly detailed archaeological excavation techniques that anthropologists and forensic archaeologists have learned through their training and experience in that part of anthropology. The goal there is to not only recover the human remains in the ideal condition, but to also recover all of the associated materials that may prove relevant and to document them in a way that protects their integrity through the investigation and allows proper interpretation at the end. Once these remains are recovered, we have to figure out if they're human or not. And that's relevant because many of the cases that are brought to the attention of anthropologists that are thought to represent human remains turn out not to be. They frequently involve non-human animals of various sorts, or even non-bone materials that can look a lot like human remains once they are fragmented and altered by the circumstances at the scene. So to do that, anthropologists have to look at the appearance of the remains, what we call morphology, and sometimes conduct scientific tests to see if the materials in these recovered specimens are consistent with bone and tooth, and if so, are they human or do they represent other species?
The primary questions that forensic anthropologists address are identity, who is this set of unknown remains, and cause or manner of death. Sometimes we're also asked to comment on how long someone has been dead. There can be other ancillary issues as well. A number of years ago, we relied largely on microscopes and magnifying glasses and measuring instruments, calipers of various kinds. And today, I rely largely on microscopes and measuring instruments and magnifying glasses. X-ray technology has improved since the days when I started. I think one of the biggest advances has been the establishment of databases. If we as practitioners enter information drawn from known cases, measurements, for example, that can be entered into a database, and we can now, if we have an unknown, take our measurements on the unknown and submit it to these databases and see, does it fall closer to males or females? Does it fall closer to this population or another population?
Anthropologists, through their training and experience, are almost uniquely positioned to evaluate alterations on a skeleton and determine if they are indeed evidence of foul play that is linked to close to the time of death, or if they're simply developmental variants, things that we're born with that we've had all our lives, or also, and very importantly, alterations that may have been made after death. When skeletons are left in the environment after death for long periods of time, as is frequently the case with the cases that anthropologists work on, a lot of postmortem change happens. This has to do with sun exposure. It has to do with animals chewing on remains, growth from surrounding vegetation. A variety of factors in the environment produce alterations on bones and teeth. And anthropologists have to be able to evaluate those, not only to help interpret the postmortem interval, but to separate those changes from the really important evidence of foul play that may also be present on the remains. we have to sort that out. And it's an important area of investigation that feeds into the ultimate determination of cause and manner of death. Anthropologists frequently find that evidence and are instrumental in making the difficult interpretation that it is indeed associated with the proximate time of death and not a pre-existing condition or something that happened after death.
One trajectory in the forensic sciences today is that we are becoming much more demanding of standards, such that every technique that we use that's presented in court can be duplicated and replicated. You can't just go in and give an impression idea because I've seen it before kind of testimony. It has to be a technique that's been validated and replicated by many, many scientists.
Anthropologists have found employment in a lot of non-traditional academic settings. We find anthropologists working in government institutions. We find them working for the military in the recovery and identification of remains from past military experiences. We find them working for human rights organizations, helping to discover truth in what happened to many people around the world who went missing as a result of civil rights conflicts. We find them in medical examiners' offices, working right alongside pathologists and other specialists in the day-to-day work of those facilities. And basically, law enforcement and institutions have discovered the value of anthropology in the recovery and analysis of human remains and the associated issues affiliated with that. This is good news for anthropologists. It has opened up lots of employment opportunities, and I think those opportunities stay bright today. And it's good news for forensic sciences because anthropologists bring a lot of value to these areas in their training, in their population perspective, in their research interests.